Thank you for joining us. We're go ahead and record. That's fine.
Okay,
It's a public
we'll make
meeting.
sure.
This is the public hearing pertaining to CDBG use of funds and rezoning of parcels in Conewango Township. In order to facilitate the conversation, we have our representatives from Planning and Zoning. We'll start with Lori Dunlap to talk about 2019 CDBG.
Thank you very much. Commissioners are proposing four projects for CDBG 2019 application. The first one is providing handicap accessibility to the community house at the North Warren Presbyterian Church in North Warren. They want to put a ramp up to the front door and replace the doors, which one is inoperable, put a automatic opener on it, do a curb cut. That is a polling place, so it's especially important that we make that accessible. Also, there's daycare there, lots of community facilities, recreational, etc. Then we're going to replace water service lines in Pine Grove Township for eligible households. The township is doing a multi-street replacement of their water main. They've had a lot of problems with leakages, breakages, and losing a lot of water. And so part of that effort is they're going to require all the houses that, excuse me, their main line will be replaced. Testing. They're going to be required, if their service line from their house out to the new main line is galvanized steel or cast iron, they're going to pass an ordinance that they have to replace them. The county's going to make money available to eligible homeowners with replacing their line. We estimate $1,500 a line. I don't think it'll probably cost that much, and probably helping 18 households with that. Then, excuse me, in Bear Lake, we recently completed a project where the storm water system on Center Street in Bear Lake was replaced. They were having a lot of problems with the road eroding. The water wasn't properly channeled to runoff, and the sluice pipes on the side of the road were clogged. And so this summer we used CDBG funds to replace that, and now they would like us to help them replace the roadway. So we're going to use CDBG dollars to hire an engineering firm. They'll design it, and then to hire a contractor to replace it. It's a multi-year program or project, so some of the money is coming out of 2019. Then Youngsville Borough has asked the county RDA to assist with demolishing a blighted and vacant commercial property, 1 East Main in Youngsville. It belongs to the Young family. I think it's been an appliance repair shop, several things throughout the years. It is falling down, caving in. The estimate to demolish that is about $60,000. The county has a limit on how much CDBG percentage of our grant that we can apply to such projects. So we're, which would be 30%. So we're allocating $59,547, which is 30% of our funding for this year, towards the demolition of that building. The borough will pay for any extras. Also, the borough paid for an asbestos inspection. They're going to pay for removal of asbestos, and then any money needed past this for demolition. And we're going to allocate $43,000, which is 18%, also a limit on the grant towards administration, which goes to pay me to administer the program, advertising, which is crazy expensive, and going to training, etc. It doesn't cover our needs. Are there any questions on these projects?
Crazy expensive, is that a technical term?
Beg your pardon?
I'm messing with you.
Okay, that's all right.
So again, this is the advertised public hearing for the 2019 CDBG use of funds. If there's any other public comment at this time, please raise it on that topic. Very
Can I
good.
ask a question?
Yes.
As part of the county's RDA and on this demolition of 1 East Main Street, has that amount been agreed by the board? I mean, because that's going to use the whole 30%, and we're not going to be able to do anything else.
You know, I've actually treated this project a bit differently. They came directly to the commissioners asking for the money. I know it's on the lighted list, but they asked if this could be made a separate project to ensure that it's done, and we were told yes.
Meaning the borough did.
Borough.
Yeah, and I think that's a major, that really, they're never gonna be able to deal with it on their own. And if we can get that off the books.
It's literally falling into the street.
Yeah, and with all the issues with it, I mean, we definitely need to get rid of it, so.
So it's something that's gonna need more than the RDA typically has. But yes, that would mean no other money from the RDA from that fiscal year CDBG.
And that's not the only money we have available for demolition, because there's other monies that have been either underutilized or, you know, that we can allocate for demolition.
Just knocked down 4 houses.
We need to knock down more.
We spent a lot of money.
But they're still light, Lori.
I'm pardon?
They're still light.
Yes, there is.
You put a nice dent in it, so.
Pardon?
You put a nice dent in it, so.
We did. Thank you for your urging and being behind.
If there's nothing more for the 2019 CDBG, then we will move on to rezoning parcels in Conewango Township from residential to business. In order to facilitate that conversation, I'll call upon my client.
We were approached by Mr. Kell from ERA Real Estate. He's proposing the rezoning of 11 individual properties in North Warren between Jackson Run Road and Vine Street. There's actually 2 properties on Vine Street, 1 on Railroad Street, and then the balance are on Jackson Run Road between 62 and Main Street. They'd be rezoned from R2 residential to B business for proposed commercial development. It's been suggested that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there may be a restaurant, a drive-in restaurant that may be of an interest, but once it's rezoned, it would be open to any activities that would be allowable in a B business district.
Can you go over the allowable, or off the top of your head, that are allowable?
It could be a restaurant, it could be automotive repair, it could be offices. It can still be used for residential use, multifamily use, which R2 is already available for. There's a wide variety of uses that I can't pull off.
Retail.
Retail, yeah. I don't have those all memorized.
Well, that's okay.
The point is, at the same time, not like heavy manufacturing or something.
No, manufacturing and industrial use is not an allowable activity in a B business. There's not much I can say other than that if you actually approve the rezoning, those 11 properties could be sold collectively or they could be sold individually once they're zoned B business.
Is there a single owner for any multiple of these properties?
It's 11 separate owners.
11 separate owners.
The properties have all been posted per the requirements. We ran the advertising as required, and we have written permission from all 11 property owners that are agreeable to the rezoning.
You also did the mailing notices required by law.
We did. All property owners that are within 300 feet of the outline of those 11 properties all received letters.
Now, a year or 2 ago, when this idea was first brought to us, I remember someone being concerned that their taxes might go up. To be clear, this moving from residential to business does not inherently raise their taxes, correct?
That was one of the questions that we got, that people were concerned that if they were rezoned to business, that their taxes would go up. We were told at that point from the assessment office that as long as they remain residential use, their taxes would stay residential taxes. They wouldn't be changed to a business use until the activity actually changed. And throughout the county, we have residential homes and business transitional and industrial that are taxed as residences, not for their zoning.
Okay, very good. Mr. Kell, did you wish to say anything?
Not much more than what he's already said. He covered it, but this project's been in the books for about a year and a half. The commissioner did write a letter explaining the tax issue, and the reason why I got involved was because I have a client that's been looking for space in that area for about 3 years, and I just thought, well, we'll try to get this thing rezoned in order to accommodate that business. It's one of the few places, if not the only one, in that area that's usable for commercial business. And there's a lot of uses there. There's boutique things and barber shops and whatever you can think of in business.
If I could add, farther down on Jackson Avenue, or Jackson Run, I hope I was saying Jackson Run Road, there are 4 properties that are already zoned B business. Then all the property in front of this proposed area along Route 62 is already zoned B business, as is the property adjacent on the other side of Route 62. So it's not really a new introduction to that area. Most of it's already zoned B business already.
All right, this is the advertised public hearing for this R2 business rezoning. Are there any public comments?
Yeah, I do.
Sir,
I live in
state your
North
name.
Warren. Charles Andrucki.
Thank you.
I live in North Warren. I don't see, you're ripping out, okay, you only got so many properties right now he's taking over, okay? He's interested in the whole block, both Vine and State Street. You're talking about putting a restaurant in. Well, I don't consider a restaurant to have a drive-through. You're talking about Vine Street becoming a major entrance for a drive-through. You're talking about Jackson. If anybody goes down there in the fall, there's hundreds of kids playing soccer down there. You're not giving anything back to the community. You're tearing the community apart. You're going to put a box store or whatever is going in there, okay? First of all, you're not going to have any jobs decently. You're going to get a couple of full-time jobs. You're going to get most of the part-time jobs, no insurance. You're not giving anything back to the community. You're just taking away from the community. I mean, I know those houses look pretty bad, okay? But you're talking a block, a city block. Because I know that's not the only couple of places he's interested in. He's interested in more of them. And when do you stop? We're losing people. And besides, you can't even fill the jobs you got now in Warren County. And then the next thing you do, you're going to build this building and you're going to go with your new tax thing, right? And the guy's not going to pay taxes for 5 years. Then he's going to say, no, you can't. My building's 5 years old. You're not going to be able to tax. Then it winds up the school board decides and you decide what the taxes are, and Conewango Township takes the short end of the stick because they have to accept whatever you guys accept.
They don't have to.
Well, they don't have to, but they don't have the money to fight. You've got to fight over it.
They don't want to fight, but
But
they
I
can do
mean,
whatever they want.
to me, it's not right. You're taking a residential neighborhood and just taking it out. And I just don't think it's right.
Just to be clear, Mike, so like hypothetically, the zoning changes on this, somebody can turn one of these properties into an auto body shop, correct?
Technically, yes.
Would the zoning change in a way where they would be able to park multiple vehicles on the property if they had that kind of a business?
Well, if someone decided to use one of those properties for one of the allowable uses, let's say auto repair or auto body shop, there are requirements that they have to meet as far as setbacks and available parking spaces. And a lot of those individual lots are smaller lots.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say it'd be impossible, but it could be challenging for them to meet those requirements for the department.
Okay,
of parking
so there's
spaces.
still requirements on vehicle,
Yeah.
because that's one of the things that I always get concerned with these, because we have that problem.
Yeah, and like automotive repair, they require some fencing to obscure the cars that are waiting to be fixed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my concern with this is, we'll deliberate on it.
Right, we'll be voting on this in the next meeting. Any other public comments?
He's talking about the businesses on Jackson, okay? Two of them is a barber, used to be it's a barber shop and a shoe repair.
Right.
Now, above those, it's the old community type thing. Those were businesses, above them were 2 apartments where probably the people who worked in those, owned them, lived. So it's just a different type of business to me back then, you know? And that's the reason they're business, that's why they're business, you know? But if you improve this, how long before that whole block is gone?
In response to his comment, the area where there is the post office, there's 4 lots that are all adjacent to each other. Right now, there's nothing to stop someone from buying those 4 properties, tearing those buildings down, and doing any other allowable use that's in a business district. So, yes, I agree, they are older businesses, they've been there for a period of time, but there's nothing to stop those from being developed into something else.
By the way, Mike, could you please explain the process that this rezoning request came through in order to get to us today?
Yeah, the way the process for rezoning is they first have to meet with the planning commission, which Mr. Kell did actually on 2 separate occasions. So they present the the plan of what he intends to do and rezone, and then the planning commission reviews that. They assure that it's compliant with all the rules and regulations, and then they make a recommendation to the commissioners. And the commissioners are the actual ones who make the decision to grant the rezoning or not. And the planning commission did recommend that it be approved, that it met all the requirements, and it wasn't spot zoning. It's not, yes, for right now, it is a residential neighborhood, but it's not out of characteristics with all the other business that's surrounding it.
Can I ask a few questions when you're done? Yeah, just to develop the record. Mr. Lane, so Mr. Kell submitted these applications for the rezoning on behalf of the owners, all the owners?
That's correct. He's acting as the agent. There was one application, and we have forms that were made that show that each individual owner signed it for their own property, showing that they were in agreement with his proposed rezoning.
Okay, so the owners can be considered individual applicants too?
No, because there's not individual applications for each property. The application covers all 11 properties as a whole. And when the applicant is not the actual owner of record, we require written permission from the owner of those parcels to actually show that they're in agreement with the rezoning.
Okay. There's no contract currently in place for the sale or development of these properties?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, we have 5 of them listed.
Okay.
For, one is listed for open sale, and the other 4 have signed a contract saying that they'd only sell for commercial development. The rest of them, we're just waiting to see if this goes forward, then we'll put our time and effort into it. Like I said, I already have somebody to use part of the property, and if this does not go forward, it'll be just like the rest of Warren County, you'll just sit there and rot.
Was there any discussion on business versus business transitional, or was it BT zone?
There was. Originally, the application was made for business transitional, and when the planning commission reviewed it with all the other properties in that area being B business, it made more sense to keep that, continue it through that
Okay,
as B business.
thank you.
And there was an additional letter sent out to all the property owners because the original letter went out referenced business transitional. So we thought it was prudent that a letter go to them explaining them the difference between business transitional and B business, which the difference is very minimal. A lot of things that are allowable use in B business by right in business transitional may require a special exception.
Sure.
Comment you just made, well, if you don't approve it, it'll go to rot like the rest of Warren County. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous statement to make. I mean, that's like saying approve it or, the county's gonna die,
Right.
What's-
Did you want to respond to anything, Mr. Kell? Okay. Any other further comment? If there's no other public comment, then I will close the public hearing. Immediately open the commissioners' meeting, calling it to order. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as a moment of silence following the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is also recorded and will become part of public record. Anything said in this meeting will be posted on the county's YouTube channel in the near future. Since the last time the commissioners met as a board, I do not believe there is a single instance where we were meeting on county business or having executive session of any kind. We do have one scheduled, as we mentioned in the work session, on the 20th, and that's to go over all pending and current litigation with the solicitor. I'm not aware of any correspondence to bring to the board. I do want to let you know that I will be sending a letter to all of the participants in 4-H, thanking them for their involvement over the last year. To be presented at the next, their next meeting on Thursday. So if you'd like to sign on to that, I will have that ready today, since that's tomorrow. On the agenda today, we have a repository tax bid, the CDBG, the resolution that we just spoke about, as well as an ordinance for the R2 to B district in Conewango Township, an appointment to the library board, an appointment to the planning commission, an intergovernmental agreement with the state police. We'd like to talk about section 504 Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as well as award the 2020 TAN. Is there anything that I did not list that anyone would like to discuss today? This is your chance for public comment. All right, hearing none. The agenda need with your approval. Does. Have you had a chance to review the minutes from October 23rd?
I have. Good.
Fiscal report, fiscal director had a training he had to be in at this time. The general fund account has $3,437,000 in it. The Erie Bank account, $449,000 in it, for a grand total of $3.8 million, almost 3.9. We anticipate projected balance on the 13th of 3.4 million. Assuming that would mean about 400,000 we're taking out of it.
Just current.
Right. Of course, there's no draw on the TAN. Any questions?
Nope, we're consistent with where we were last year, so.
Yep. Yeah, almost. Actually, if anything, we have 100,000 more than we did last year. Okay, there's no proclamations on the agenda, so I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes, and the fiscal report.
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion. Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. No whole business on the agenda. First thing on the agenda for new business is repository bid. This is parcel number SH62794280000, currently owned by Ken Wynn LLC in Sheffield Township. It's on Route 666. The assessed value is $510, and it was bid on by Joseph Lerner and Eric Mineo for a bid of $325. I make a motion to approve the repository tax bid.
Second.
Discussion, public comment. Those in favor, please state aye. Motion carries. Next, resolution number 3,147. This is in regards to CDBG that Laura Dunlap just described. Did you wish to say anything else? Okay, I move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Discussion. Thank you very much for putting your time and effort into this. It looks good to me. Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Ordinance number 254. This is the zoning change.
So I'll make a motion to adopt it as a, in order to get the discussion going.
All right, I'll second. Discussion.
Yeah, so I'm mulled over this for a while, ever since we started discussing it. One of my chief concerns about this is that there's no real plan for what's being done there. And, once this is changed, this will affect those properties, in perpetuity. So you could rezone it, and then there's a lot of different things that could happen with those properties in a residential neighborhood, and on the flip side of it, my view of it is that there's a public hearing here. There's one gentleman, I'm assuming, you said you live on Vine Street?
No, I don't live on Vine Street, I live on another street over there in North Warren.
So you're not representing any of the other properties
No, I
adjacent?
don't, no, but I am a resident of North Warren.
Of North Warren, yeah.
Yes.
But we don't have anybody else that's shown up, and you have letters of approval.
What I understood, one of the guys I talked to the other day, he got his letter on Tuesday, or Monday, just prior to getting it. I thought he would have had it weeks ago to let him know about it. I don't know how long, I think people got these orders, when they got their letters or anything else. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they had time to get here or not.
I can comment. The letters were mailed probably 3 weeks prior to this hearing.
And that's for all of the properties adjacent to the zone that's being changed?
Within 350 feet of or 300 feet of the footprint
Yeah.
of those 11 properties, correct. I think total, off the top of my head, we mailed out 67 letters. This morning, we got 4 back that were undeliverable.
Okay.
Okay.
Because the thing is like I said, you know, I mean, generally this board has been very, from my perspective, has been very, you know, we want to promote business as much as we can and give everybody every opportunity to develop properties. But I do have, there is a pretty big residential footprint in the area, and this would make a dramatic change to that. I'm half tempted to table it in order to follow up with the adjacent properties and just double check that they're comfortable with, you know, have a discussion with them. I mean, I don't know, this seems like a pretty big change to me with no real plan of action for those properties. I mean, generally when we do rezoning like this, somebody has some kind of project that they're legitimately trying to develop, and so there's a plan that we can understand that justifies the change in the zone. In this case, like what we have is a consent from the property owners to change the zone. But that would take 2/3 of that block and make it business in a residential area. So I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to keeping a close-knit community together, but at the same time, I also believe in the property owner's right to decide what that use is, as well as monetize their asset. So I lean towards approving it, but I did want to ask Mr. Kell, is there in fact no plan, or is it just not a public plan, or?
It's not a public plan, no.
Okay, but there is a plan.
I'm working with a developer, yes, and we're at the point where we have to wait till it's gonna be approved before we're going further.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I guess my question is like if there was a plan in place, I don't know that we would not approve a change in zoning. I guess I kind of hesitate to just blanketly rezone an entire area just because
Well,
there
the
might
plan is
potential.
commercial development.
Well, you know, I get that. I'm just saying, like, you're saying that the holdup is that they don't believe that it'll be rezoned, like.
Correct, it's gotta be rezoned before anybody's even gonna look at the potential development. We're just not gonna waste your time.
Yeah, I did review this file, in preparation for the hearing. I can offer comments if you want.
Sure.
So, just reviewing case law, when you're dealing with an amendment to a zoning ordinance, like a rezoning, the main issue to be avoided is spot zoning, which is, creation of an area of particular type of use or type of use that's not really connected to anything else nearby. I don't think there's a spot zoning issue here, in the sense that the whole west side of Market Street is business, and you do have additional business farther east on Jackson Run. The analysis still then goes to what is in the general welfare and interests of the community. The question about that seems to be a bit open issue. It's within the discretion of the board. The fact there's not been a plan just speaks to basically a lack of evidence to determine on that. Although, on the other hand, it seems like there's a substantial amount of the owners who wish to sell the property. So, I mean, I see this as a closed case, and if the board wanted to call another hearing on this matter to obtain more input, I would go along with that.
So I guess I would say just blanketly that I'm not, like, blanketly opposed to it. I don't want to make that case. I guess my concern with some of these things is I would like to believe that all the people in that neighborhood are well informed on what the situation is. I don't believe that they are. Most people don't show up to these hearings and don't know what they are. The thing gets rezoned, and then all of a sudden everybody shows up because, hey, why wasn't I notified? Or I didn't get the letter, or my wife got it, she threw it in the trash, or whatever. You know, whatever the situation is, you know, my kid got it, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the area is rezoned, and then it affects the neighborhood beyond the space that's being changed. So that, I guess that's my only real legitimate concern. If everybody feels like all the due diligence has been done on this, and then you know, like, under law, then
I mean, I spoke with Mr. Line in advance, and based on what he's provided me here, I mean, is that all the notice requirements under the MPC have been complied with. You know, if you needed to submit documentary evidence, you know, after the fact,
If we have all that.
demonstrating copies of the letters, they could be received for the hearing, purpose of the hearing.
And I can add that throughout the required advertising, the required posting, and the letters, I've received only 2 phone calls regarding the rezoning. One was the typical phone call that I get that was someone from North Warren, I can't remember who it was. They just wanted to know what it was, and they had no comment. One was a comment from a lady who wasn't able to be here because she works during the day. She lives farther down Vine Street, and she wasn't keen on the idea. And that's kind of all she really had to say.
okay. Well, I mean, this is a publicly advertised meeting,
Yeah.
and it's been through the planning commission multiple times in order to have discussion on it.
You're talking about Jackson, you also got to talk about Vine Street, which there's nothing, there is no businesses over on Vine Street. You're talking about Jackson, saying, okay, everything on Jackson good, we'll build, we'll approve it. You're also talking Vine Street, you're talking about houses that aren't taken yet that they're trying to get a hold of anyway.
Yeah.
Vine Street is residential too. I mean,
Well, and that's my point
and it's not, that's not business over
that I
there.
realize that there's a lot of business in this area, that those blocks, generally speaking, the bulk of them are residential. So and that's the point I'm trying to make. My thing I'm trying to deliberate on is we've got 11 property owners that say that they want their properties rezoned. They're going along with it. Like, and to Commissioner Kafferlin's point, who are we to say, okay, no, you can't do it? The only reason that I'm hesitating at all is in deference to the other property owners in the area that could potentially be affected by a change in zoning, like in their backyard.
Oh, they'll be surprised when they
So-
see the bulldozers.
But I guess my point is that this has gone through the planning commission multiple times. This meeting was publicly advertised. There were notices that were sent out. Other than holding off another 2 weeks and personally phone calling every person in that neighborhood, I don't know that there's much else we can do to get public input on it. So with that said, I don't have anything else.
Mr. Burris?
Just out of curiosity, the county is always promoting for growth and business. I'm just wondering, is there anything in play that would say how many jobs this would possibly bring in and at what pay scale those jobs would be?
Haven't done that research. Like I said, they're not going to do anything until they know that there's a possibility to develop. And if you're any kind of a business person, you gotta know what the numbers are before you start sticking your nose in.
Well, that's why I was curious if you had an idea of what type of hourly pay you'd be looking at, or, you know, what the benefit to the,
And I'm not gonna guess them.
okay.
Can I comment that it can be any kind of business? I mean, there could be one business interested today and another one tomorrow. One could fold, another come in, so
Understood.
it's hard to say what type of business may or may not be there.
It doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be commercial businesses. They could go in there and build a multi-unit residential building, which is sorely needed in Warren County. And that would not be any profit maker for anybody other than the person that owned that residential building.
Understood.
Township, is there any reason that what Commissioner Eggleston stated couldn't be done to personally contact each of these other homeowners and find out what their thoughts are on this? Because where was the advertising done?
Turn that over to Mr. Lyon.
It's required by law that we advertise in the local paper 2 weeks prior to the hearing. So it was, I can tell you the dates, it was October 30th and November 6th. So 1 week ago and then 2 weeks ago on Wednesday.
A lot of people don't subscribe to the
But
Warren Times.
each one of those properties presently have a yellow posting posted in front of their properties that have been there for 2.5 weeks.
The 11 properties.
The 11 properties, correct. So anybody who was driving down Jackson Run Road between 62 and Main Street or down Vine Street, I don't want to say there's no way they could miss them, but they stand out pretty well.
And it was front page of the newspaper as well.
And that's true, there was an article in the paper
Yeah.
about,
So it's not like it was hidden on the back of it.
yeah.
But if they're
If you
kind
don't-
of saying
if
not
you don't buy
everybody
the
gets the
paper, you're
paper.
still not gonna see that. And I think, I guess I'm looking at it, if this were coming, something that was going to be done in my neighborhood, I would want somebody to talk to me about it. I would want to have an idea of what are you looking at. There is a big difference between a residential apartment building and a car business that is going to have vehicles there at all hours making a considerable amount of noise, or a drive-through fast food place that's going to be open 24/7, which is going to create a lot of traffic. And that area does have a lot of children in it during soccer season, and a lot of traffic will be generated by a business right in the middle of residential.
And that's one of the reasons why the law, it's from the Pennsylvania Municipal Code,
Municipal Planning Code.
Planning Code, thank you, requires us by law to notify all property owners in writing, and the law sets up that 300-foot buffer, not the county.
Are they notified, they're not just notified for this hearing, right? Aren't they notified for the planning commission hearings as well?
They are not, because
They're not, so they're not notified until it comes
until
before
it gets
the
to this point,
commissioners.
yeah.
I think, again, there was that one person who was not a resident of
The
the
immediate
properties in
area.
question,
Yeah,
who voiced concern, that's it.
correct.
I mean, besides yourself, obviously, because you're here. I meant
Yeah.
in terms of someone that's not able to be here.
And if I recall, you were present at the planning commission meeting.
Yes, I was.
Well, again, for me, this comes down to ultimately the freedom of the property owner in order to monetize their asset. I don't think that it would be a substantial burden on the other property owners. So from my perspective, I strongly lean towards it now, after discussing it. Do you have a different opinion?
I have nothing further.
Okay, any other public comment? Then I'll call the question, unless I hear another motion. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your discussion. Next on the agenda, library board appointments. We received a letter from the library requesting that we appoint Colette Bonavita from Warren to board. Term, 3-year term beginning January 1st, 2020, expiring December 31st, 2022. Any discussion?
Make a motion to accept Colette Bonavita as the appointee for the library board.
Good. Second discussion.
I think that she'll do a wonderful job on it. I had the pleasure of working with her players. She's a great board member.
Very good. Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, the appointment of Andy Brooks to replace John Baker on the Planning Commission. I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Andy Brooks is a township supervisor in Pleasant. He has a one construction background and would be a fantastic member of the planning commission.
I agree. That would be effective January 1st, 2020 till discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is an intergovernmental agreement between the Warren County and Pennsylvania State Police. In essence, this agreement is kind of an addendum to an agreement we already have in place, but it goes a little bit further. Currently, we're allowed to listen to the state police traffic in the 911 center. This agreement would actually allow the new radio system to have police programmed in order to talk directly with PSP on PSP incidents. Director McCorson, is there anything you wanted to add?
Just to be clear, in the past, we have not had an agreement that allowed the state police to come over to Warren County's controlled assets to communicate. And this would just opens up the door for more interoperability and would allow the agencies to work together seamlessly.
Right. So to be clear, Warren County units are not talking on PSP's direct channels, but in certain circumstances, they can, like over-the-air, flash our radios and allow us all to be on the same channel if they can need be.
Over-the-air programming is one of the options that they have, but more specifically, it would allow state police units to, there's nothing in place written that says the state police could come over to our frequencies, and that's what that agreement specifically covers.
Okay. I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Discussion?
Sounds good.
It is something that we had talked about in the operability discussions pertaining to the new radio system now, a year and a half ago. In fact, if anything, it was something I think we assumed would happen. Just didn't make it in any verbiage yet, so we had to create a new agreement. Any public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda, discussion of 504 Rehabilitation Act. Lori, I assume that is you.
As recipients of federal funding, the county has to ensure that all of our services, our programs, activities are accessible to all residents of Warren County, specifically that they're not discriminated against for any reason. A couple years ago, I did a plan review of all county facilities to check the accessibility of them, and some recommendations were made. Staff was discussed of how to make accommodations for people with different disabilities and providing their services. One of the main things was making the Fifth Street entrance accessible, and that is underway as we speak. And then the accessibility from the 4th Street entrance back to the 5th Street with the sidewalk along the side of the building. So that was a big improvement that's underway right now. This notice also is to reaffirm that I am the ADA compliance coordinator for the county, and also that the county has a grievance procedure in place. Contact Commissioner, contact me, contact anyone at the county, and you can submit paperwork if you have a grievance against some way that you feel you've been discriminated against accessing a county building or activity or program. Any questions?
Yes, so this is a notice, nothing has changed. Are you asking us to approve it or simply make note of it?
I think it has a signature on it, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't.
No, we just had to publicly discuss it,
Okay,
and we had to reaffirm that I am the ADA coordinator.
okay, well,
For the
consider it
county.
reaffirmed.
Thank you.
Okay, last thing on the agenda is the 2020 tax anticipation note. We opened 3 bids at our work session yesterday. The one from KeyBank was clearly the lowest rate at 2.08% fixed tax exempt for 1 year, not to exceed $4 million. I would move to approve the bid from KeyBank.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I believe this is the best rate we've ever had, and I'm very happy with it. We should save a significant amount of money for the county with this bid.
Any public comment? All right, all those in favor of the KeyBank bid, please state aye. Aye. Motion carries. Personnel transaction report, I don't see one, there is none. Very good. Then any closing comments? I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Yay. We're adjourned.